Watercolor and paper flowers are two of my favorite things, and today I'm bringing them together to create one awesome project. Here is what we need to make our watercolor paper flowers. We're going to be using the Marabu Fluid Arts Brushes, Marabu Graphix Aqua Inks watercolors, and I can't wait for you guys to see how bold and brilliant these colors are. We're going to need a pencil. We're also going to use the Marabu Graphix permanent markers to add some highlights when we're done. Going to need watercolor paper. We're going to use a hot glue gun to assemble our flowers. We're also going to need templates, so I created some great petal and leaf templates that you can download for free. And last but not least, a scissor. All right, are you guys ready? Let's make it. Step 1, go ahead and download the templates that I created for you. You've got a few different leaf templates. You can use all three or choose the ones that you like. And then there are 3 different size petals. We've got a large, a small, and a medium one. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna cut out each one of our templates, and then we're going to trace them on watercolor paper. Once you've got all your petals and leaves cut out, we're gonna start to trace them on our watercolor paper. Now, for each flower that we create, we're going to need 6 large petals, 6 medium-sized petals, and 6 small petals. So we want to make sure that we trace enough of these on our watercolor paper. Once you've traced all of your petals and leaves, go ahead and cut them out. Now that they're all cut out, we're going to cover our surface and get ready to paint. All right, now it's time to fill our Fluid Arts brushes with our Aqua Inks watercolor. So you're going to want to use a pipette or a small funnel to keep it neat and clean. What I love about the watercolor brushes is that each pack comes with 5mm, which is a flat brush, and then you've got rounded 3mm and 4mm brushes. So you can mix and match as needed depending on what project you're doing. Now our watercolor flowers aren't going to be super detailed, so we're going to use a lot of the 5mm flat brushes and then use our round brushes for some of the details. All right, let's get these guys filled up and ready to paint. I've also got one that is filled with just water. I'm going to use this if I need to blend my colors together when I'm painting my petals. Okay, let's start painting. What I recommend doing first is always testing out your brushes on a scrap piece of watercolor paper. That way you can get used to how fast they come out, what the brush strokes are like before you actually work on your project. After practicing on our scrap paper, I've got a good feel for how my ink is going to flow out of my brushes. You want to lightly squeeze right at the area on the brush that says push. That's going to make your aqua ink lightly come out of your brush, and then you can use strokes to create your design. So I've got all 3 of my petals set up, and for this flower, I'm going to use a purple and a magenta to create the design on each one. As I'm adding both of my colors, I'm also using my water brush to help blend and reactivate some of the paint as it starts to dry. All right, I'm gonna work on painting all of my petals with the same design and pattern. I love how it's free flowing and it almost looks like a flower right before it's about to open up. All right, after we've got our petals painted, it's time to do our leaves. We had 3 different templates for leaves and I'm gonna use all of them. I'm gonna do something a little bit different. So I'm gonna take my water-filled brush and I'm gonna actually add some water to my leaves first. And then I'm gonna apply my paint. I'm gonna keep this water also still for blending. All right, I'm gonna paint the rest of my leaves, and then while my leaves and my petals are drying, I'm gonna paint 2 full sheets of watercolor paper yellow and do some green highlights in them, and we're gonna create the center of our flowers with those sheets. All right, everything is dry. Now, I thought it'd be kind of fun and add a little bit of extra dimension and texture to it to take my Marabu Graphix permanent markers and add some lines into each one of my leaves and petals. All right, so our next step is going to be to give our leaves and our petals a little bit of dimension. So we're gonna take our scissor and we're gonna cut a slit in each one. I'm gonna take my hot glue and put a little line of hot glue on the right side of that slit, and then I'm gonna fold over my left side slightly. And that's gonna give my leaf a little bit of dimension, and if you want, you can also curl it back as well. We're gonna do that with all of the leaves and with each petal as well. So remember, we did those 2 full sheets of yellow and we added some green highlights in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these into strips. And I wanna make sure that my strips are fairly even. You can do about 2.5 to 3 inches. And then we're gonna take each one of our strips and we're gonna cut slits along the side, being careful not to go all the way through. We want our slits to be a little less than 1/4 inch. And if they're not all the same, that's totally fine. Once they're all cut, what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually take 2 and we're gonna do them back to back. So the backs are kind of ugly and we didn't want to paint them to make the paper too fragile. So we're gonna put them 2 back to back so that you see the yellow painted side on both sides. Now, we're gonna put just a little bit of glue right on the ends to keep those together. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna lay it out and we're gonna roll it. And then once we get to the end, we're gonna secure it with glue. And then we're gonna fluff it down. All right, it's time to assemble our flower. The last piece that you need is a circle. So any size circle will work. You may want to go a little bit bigger if you want your flower to span out more. And I just cut a scrap piece of the watercolor paper that I had. This is gonna be our base. Now we're gonna start with our largest petals first, and we're gonna glue these, 6 of them, around the outside edge of the base. And then we're gonna do the same thing coming in with our medium ones. And our medium ones will go in between each one of our large petals, and then same thing followed by our small ones. We'll also finish it off by gluing the center of our flower. All right, I've got 2 flowers built and I've got all of my leaves. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble them together. There's a couple different options for this. You can just glue your leaves to your flower and then glue the flowers together, or if you've got something like a large piece of extra ribbon or some scrap paper, you can use that as the base to create your floral garland. I loved how my watercolor flowers turned out. I hope you guys like them too. All that's left is for me to style them in the craft room above my pegboard. But imagine how pretty these would be at a shower, in a kid's room, or even for a birthday. It's an easy craft that makes such a big impact. You can find all the Marabu products that I used today on Marabu Creative USA's website. And as always, don't forget to follow me at CraftBox Girls for more creative projects using all of my favorite Marabu products. Happy crafting!